Thank you all for that. Tim, Shelley, Emily, Josh, Gabrielle, myself, we can't thank you guys enough for being here today. It means the world to us, each and every one of you. And it really means a lot that New Life Community Church made a way for us to live stream this. So we believe that Uncle Jim and Aunt Wanda and Uncle Gary and Aunt Juanita and Aunt Ruthie are here joining with us too in heart, as along with maybe other family and friends that couldn't be here but are watching online. So we're so glad you're with us too. We want to give a really very special thanks to all of you, many of our friends who've just done so much for us in preparing for today's service, just in other ways to support us, and the meal to follow. So thank all of you so much, all of our friends. We love and appreciate you so much. And then a very special thanks to Pastor Nick and to Pastor Dan and to New Life Community Church for hosting us here today and just for serving us and supporting us as you have. You've been absolutely wonderful to us through all of this. But even more, we thank you for the Recovery Alive program here at New Life and the impact that it's had on our family. Our dad greatly appreciated all that Pastor Nick and Recovery Alive has done for Bucky, for my sister Shelley, for their marriage, and then the ripple effect on all of our family. We are so grateful. So we couldn't think of a better way for people to honor Dad at this time than to give a gift to the work and ministry of Recovery Alive so that more families can experience resurrecting hope. So a few years ago when Mom passed away, I got a tattoo. And I got a tattoo in memory of her, and it was something that she would often say. I'll show you after service if you want me to. It says, I'm not just saying that, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. And it meant so much to me, so I had to get a tattoo. So I started to contemplate if, not that I'm going, just if I got another tattoo in memory of Dad, what would it say? What would that be? And I just came up with two things that he commonly said. And one would be, I don't know. I don't know. And that was how Dad ended a conversation. It's like it was how he kind of put a period on it. And he said, the conversation's done because I don't have anything else to say. I don't know. And that was usually within a minute or two. And the second option would be, and another thing. You see, a typical visit with Dad before he had moved in with me the last 6 weeks, it would involve he and I kick back in recliners and we'd be eating something and watching TV. Again, not much conversation. But all of a sudden, he would look over me and he'd just go, and another thing. And my thought was, well, what was the first thing? But for Dad, he had this list of things in his head that he wanted to remember to ask me about or for things that I would take care of. So Tim and Shelley and I, we want to share a little something about our dad today, and then perhaps another thing, and another thing, and another thing. So Dad grew up, as I already mentioned, he grew up in Sleepy Creek, West Virginia, and he and his twin brother were the youngest of 8 children. And Dad and Uncle Dave, they just kind of had their own twin language. We were told as children, but this definitely went through their adult years too, because we would often laugh with our cousins, Christy, Lynn, and Hope, about how they had this special language that kind of sounded like this. It was just this little mumble, but they perfectly understood each other. It was absolutely amazing. And I also think it's one of the things that connected him so much with his grandson-in-law, Josh. Josh being from Paw Paw and Dad from the Berkeley Springs area, and they shared that same language too, right? Last year, after driving home from our Kesecker family reunion in Berkeley Springs, Dad and I drove some of the roads around the area, and he started telling me stories, and he rarely did that. We didn't hear a lot of Dad's stories, but we drove by the place where he had gone to school. It was a one-room school that had 3 sets of twins. I know there was Dan and Dave, and there was Floyd and Lloyd. Pastor Nick was making fun of Kim and Tim. There was Floyd and Lloyd, and I don't know, I bet one of my cousins know the names of the gals that were twins. But then he started telling me this story about how he and Uncle Dave took chocolate milk to school, and they took it, Grandma sent him in some kind of a canister, like a tin canister, so they would set it on the wood stove. And he said this one time that partway through the day, there was just this boom, and the lid had heated up and blew up, and there was just chocolate milk all over the ceiling. But the best part of that story was just this smile on Dad's face and the way that he chuckled when he recalled the memory. It was just so special. And then recently, while I was at the house with me, he woke up from a nap this one day, and he had that same little smile across his face. And he told me, he says, I was just thinking about bologna and tomato sandwiches. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, Mom would make them for us when we went over to the island with Dad. And I'm thinking, island in West Virginia? What's he talking about? Well, this is what was so cool. I told my sister too, and she was like, oh, it might be some mental things. You know, I tell you, Dad was as sharp as a tack to his very last day. But a couple of days later, I was going through boxes of old photos, and I ran across this news article that was about my Uncle Arliss, Dad's oldest brother, and the work he had done in Morgan County. And in the article, Uncle Arliss said this. He says, I was in high school during the Depression, but we never knew it. Dad farmed about 45 acres on the West Virginia side of the property, and also farmed 35 acres on Sandy Bank, Jake's Island, in the Potomac River. So it was so special. I think me running across that article, it was no coincidence. It was a God incidence. It was just a special little gift. Dad and his family, they weren't just farmers, they were sustenance farmers, which means that nearly all the crops or the livestock raised was used to maintain just the family. So they were very, very hardworking people. Without a doubt, one of the things that, the best things Dad gave to Shelley, Tim, and I is just this genuine and deep love for West Virginia and for family. We will always remember and cherish the big C's from our childhood: country roads, cousins, and car sickness. Several weekends a month, at least once a month, sometimes two, we drove that winding and hilly road from Martinsburg to Berkeley Springs, where at least one of us, if not all three of us, would throw up. But we would completely forget about it once we got to either Grandma's house or to one of our aunts or uncles, and we got to play with our cousins. We had 36 first cousins, just the first cousins, on my dad's side. We will forever cherish the memories Dad gave us of times with our cousins, like sled riding at Grandma's, swimming, and this is Cousin Allie over here, swimming in Sleeping Creek, churning homemade ice cream in the rope swing at Uncle Arliss's, riding mini bikes and playing kick the can at Uncle Dave's, walking the train tracks and swimming at Aunt Edna's, riding tractors and watching Uncle Julian milk cows, the huge picnics we would have at Uncle Jim, eating corn on the cob with a big smile on his face and the corn and the butter all over his chin, right? See, my cousins know what I'm talking about. And without a doubt, the awesome hay rides around the country roads of Morgan County, singing what? She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes, yee-haw. These memories and more that our dad gave us are just absolutely precious to us. And even more precious is the fact that our Kesecker family has stayed so closely connected all these years. We have these annual reunions, and it's just such a special time, sweet time, where we sit around and we recall these memories and so many more. And our hearts would just forever be knit together. So we are so thankful for these country roads that take us to a place that we will always, always call home. And I know it just meant so much to Dad that Tim chose to build a home in Berkeley Springs, and a home built by Uncle Dave's son, our cousin Lynn, I might add, just making it all that more special to us. With our Kesecker reunions, we have these Kesecker family directories. We have them on display out there. You can see just the size of the family. And on the back of one of them, it says it perfectly. It says, family ties are precious threads. No matter where we roam, they draw us close to those we love, and they pull our hearts to home. Here's another thing about Dad. Just like his father, he wasn't one to express his emotions very well. He wasn't verbally expressive, and nor was he very physically affectionate when we were children. And just in honesty, that was hard for us. That was hard. But he did communicate his love for us in other ways, and one of the ways was through special and unique gifts. As the article mentioned that Gabrielle read, Dad was gone a lot when we were young in the Air Guard, but he would always bring us back the most unique gifts to every trip. And Shelley and I had this whole collection of dolls that he brought back from all the countries that he flew to. And some of the dolls, like the ones from Japan and Spain, they were just so beautiful and elegant. And then there are these other ones like from Ireland and Scotland that are just downright creepy. I don't know what made him bring those back, but they're still very special to us. And again, we have a few of those on display. They're fun to look at. When we were young, Dad gave us, mostly Tim and I, the most amazing gift a dad could give. He got the driveway paved and he put up a basketball court. But this wasn't like go out to Dick's and buy the little, portable thing. It was absolutely amazing. It was large, it was level, it was smooth, and Tim is the one who recalled that it was he and Uncle Dave, his twin brother, who designed and built this thing. And they got these big, thick iron pipes, welded them together so it kind of went up and jutted out with this really nice backboard. And then they dug this huge hole and cemented it into the ground. I mean, not even a hurricane was going to knock this thing over. And then he completed it with a chain link because he didn't want the rope, to always having to be replacing the net and stuff when the rope broke. And but the best part is that when you made a shot, it would go cha-ching, cha-ching. That was the best part. And between Tim and I and all the neighborhood kids, just hours a day would be spent shooting hoops on that court. And I'm sure the constant sound of a bouncing basketball had to drive the neighbors crazy. Dad also got us a pool table in the basement, and he taught us how to shoot pool. He wanted to make sure we knew how to do it. A ping pong table, all kinds of stuff. But then on our 16th birthday, this was the coolest gift ever, he got Tim and I a jukebox. And I mean, it was like a real jukebox. It had been in a restaurant or a bar, probably, somewhere. And it had like 50 records, the little 45s. And you got to pick 5 songs for a quarter. But the best part was the quarter just dropped in a little bag in the back. So you just got the quarter again, and then you reused it over and over again. But that just was the most amazing gift and just so heartfelt. And Dad continued this unique gift giving our whole lives. Gift giving just brought him great joy. And in these last few years, he would find and buy the most unique and strange things, usually on Facebook. Tim was very concerned about his account. But this was very concerned. This was the kind of thing Dad bought. See, you hold this, keep this on your keychain, and just when you need it at that moment, you all want a pair, don't you? I know. I'm keeping these. That was awesome. But if it had a chicken or a rooster, he got it for Shelley. If it had a dog or a sea turtle, he got it for me. And if it had an airplane or a WV on it, he got it for Tim. And I think it was just his way of saying, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you. And then every time we got together for a holiday meal as a family over these last few years, invariably we would each get an envelope with a $100 bill in it. He'd just start passing them out. But you didn't just get the $100, you got a dad doodle on the envelope. Do we have the dad doodle? That's just an example of one of them. We would just laugh and laugh at these little drawings he would put on things. It was hilarious. Christmas 2 years ago, we started exchanging names as a family instead of having to buy gifts for everybody. But this year, 2 years ago, we said, you can't buy anything. You have to just find something in your house and give to that person. So Dad got my name. And he gave me, someone had given him a Martinsburg Monopoly, so he gave me that. But I got some dad doodles and he just decorated it all up. There's all kinds of little stickers. The best ones are on the back. He's got, pass me on. I think he's saying if you want to get rid of it, you go ahead. And then we got a mountaineer here. This is a little picture, says Wimp and Dan with a question mark. I don't know if he wasn't sure if it was them or just the year. I'm not sure. And then he's got a picture of me on a unicycle. And then here it says, side by side or miles apart, family is always close at heart. And then he's got this sticker Kesecker since 1374. People understand that love is more than just a word or a feeling, and that it also requires loving actions were known as Kesecker. Being a Kesecker meant being loving in every sense and demonstrating it through their words and selfless actions. I don't know where he got that, but I got it on my box. This is very special. I will never play this game, but I will never get rid of it. So, no doubt, gift giving was one of Dad's big love languages. And another thing about our dad, he was the most warm and welcoming and friendly person to everyone he ever met. I mean, even to the people who thought he was Uncle Dave. When we were kids, he'd carry on a conversation and he'd just be smiling and going on. And then, we'd go, hey, well, who's that, Dad? And he was like, I don't know, someone who knows Dave. Just friendly and warm and welcoming. This week, I got the sweetest note from an old neighbor. For any neighbors, Suzanne Stoker. I hadn't heard from her in so long. And she said this. She says, your mom and dad were two extraordinary people. As I look back and remember our times growing up on Central Avenue, I am reminded how kind and gentle and sweet both of your parents were. Your dad never got upset when I came over to shoot hoops at your house. And I remember when he had the garage floor sealed, I would come over to ride my bike. He was always kind and friendly to me. And then a friend from high school, actually a couple years ago, had shared this with me. She said, it was always fun hanging out at your house. I remember a time I was really upset about something and getting to your house and crying and your dad hugging me. And then she went on to say, she says, I didn't realize parents could be friendly and fun. I've tried to pattern my interactions with my teenagers and their friends after what I learned from your parents. It meant so much to me. Dad welcomed all of our friends, always with a really big smile and a warm hug. And it was interesting, for being an introverted and quiet man, it's surprising to think back at how he made our home just so warm and welcoming. We had friends over all the time, and we never worried that he'd get upset or irritated, that we brought people over. And we didn't have to ask permission to invite someone to dinner. There was always a seat at the table for any and all friends and neighbors. Shelley said one time she came home from college on a weekend and she found friends who were basically friends of Tim's, Mark, Butch, and Tony. They were all sitting at the dining room table with Mom and Dad, so she assumed Tim was also home from college. But no, that wasn't the case. Just Mark and Butch and Tony came over to have dinner with Mom and Dad, because our friends, they weren't just our friends, they were Mom and Dad's friends too. One summer during our college years, Dad made a regulation-sized volleyball court in the backyard. And again, he made it official. He dug out all around the perimeter or whatever to, make it really clear the boundary lines. Then he dug big holes and cemented the poles in, got a regulation net. Then he put a refrigerator on the back porch so he could keep a keg of beer in there all summer long. And that wasn't enough. He needed to drill a hole in the side of the refrigerator so the tap could just run out the side of the refrigerator all summer long. Friends and people I had no idea who they were just showed up all summer long to play volleyball in our backyard that summer. And Dad absolutely loved it, and so did Mom, and so did everyone else. And then I'll never forget the New Year's Eve party we had one year. The theme was New Year's Eve in the past. It was with all our neighbors and other friends. And so everyone, you were supposed to come dressed from some era of your choosing. So Dad dressed from the 50s, and he told everyone he was Chachi from Happy Days. And that name it stuck right up to today. Friends would know him as Chachi or Chach. And that's why it's on your program today. And that was also, I believe, the time that Dad introduced us to frying the bacon. That's an actual dance move that my dad created. You see, we didn't dance a lot, but once in a while at these parties, there might get to be some dancing. And so then we would do the little Soul Train line. And so Dad's not much of a dancer, but when it was his turn to dance down the Soul Train line, he just laid down and he just started shaking. And we're like, Dad, what are you doing? And he says, I'm frying the bacon. I'm frying the bacon. That became, the next time he lay down and Tim lay down next to him. So it was like father and son frying the bacon, double bacon, they said. So I could go on with another thing and another thing and another thing to share with you, but Things like telling you how Dad could build or fix anything, or about the cool El Camino he had for so many years. He loved it so much he had it painted twice. Or the time he brought home a yippee stick. This is a yippee stick. And you take another popsicle stick and you rub it along here, and the propeller goes like this. And then all of a sudden when you yell, yippee, it'll start going the other way. It's magic. It's a trick to it. But he taught us, he made this at work one day. That's how busy he was. They all made yippee sticks. Or about how he was the quiet dad leaning against the fence or sitting in the bleachers with a big smile on his face at every single game we ever played, softball, basketball, football, whatever it was. I could tell you about one of the best days of Dad's entire life was the day that Larry Sessa and his family moved on to Central Avenue. He and Dad were instant best friends, and we could share story after story of their shenanigans. They would build things together, fix things together, and they would laugh their whole way through it. Everything they did together, they just made it fun. And as I mentioned, Dad wasn't one to express his emotions. He wasn't verbally expressive nor physically affectionate. And it wasn't really until these past few years that Dad began to communicate his feelings more with us. But it wasn't as you might expect. It was actually thanks to his iPad. Opened up a whole new world of communication for Dad when he discovered memes. So pretty much daily, we got multiple memes from Dad that range from things like this. Tonight, I'm gonna have possum soup made from Himalayan possum because I found Himalayan on the road. And I really like this one. I poop breakfast, what's your superpower? And then sometimes they were more heartfelt. Life is about learning to appreciate the little things and recognizing that your family, friends, and faith are what matters. We have printed a lot of these memes and just displayed them all around for you to enjoy because they just communicate so much of his humor, how funny he was, and just his heart. They communicated so very well. Although Dad struggled to communicate with his children, something changed when Emily, his granddaughter, came along, as well as his great-granddaughter, Gabrielle. We saw a whole different side of Dad. And it was hard at first. And then we realized that it was probably his second chance. And it was his do-over. So he seemed to open up in a whole new way. And we are so grateful Emily got to experience that, and Gabrielle, and we're so grateful that we got to witness that and see it and be a part of it. So we're very excited that Emily and Josh and Gabrielle are moving into Papa's home. It's now their home, making it their own. And it's a place now where we can continue to come together and cherish the memories of Dad and Mom, and we can make new ones together as a family. So Emily's sister, Abby, she's going to share some words now that Emily wrote about this very special bond that she has with her Papa.